Hi there, friends. Welcome to another edition of TechSoup Connect Canada, a project of the digital nonprofit. My name's Eli, and I'm one of your local TechSoup Connect hosts. We're all under the umbrella of TechSoup, which is a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits get, implement, and use technology effectively. So I'm delighted that we've got Michael Imholte here with us to talk basically about the scary part of whether we should be even planning an event or not. So we're going to cover the 9 signs that your nonprofit is ready or not to host a successful gala. But who is Michael? So Michael leads Black Diamond Benefits, a consultancy that partners with nonprofits to produce high-impact fundraising events. As an auctioneer, yes, an actual auctioneer. Let's say he talks fast, it'll be fun. And strategic guide, Michael helps organizations unlock major gifts through emotionally resonant galas and expertly structured fund-to-need moments. He brings calm, confidence, and clarity to the often chaotic world of fundraising, helping teams plan smarter, speak with purpose, raise significantly more, all the things you need. Whether on stage or behind the scenes, his focus is always the same, aligning every element of an event with your nonprofit's mission. So, let's dive into those 9 signs. Ladies and gentlemen, give me a clapping emoji from Michael.
So my goal for this next half hour or however long is that everyone here gets something of value that they can take with them into the rest of their nonprofit work or just into their event planning as well. So once again, I am Mike Imholte from Black Diamond Benefits. And yes, I am an auctioneer. I do the 25, now 30, now 35, and now 40, now 45, and now 50. But I do so much more than that. I started out as an auctioneer and then I became a fundraiser. And so what does that really mean? The short version, because you're probably sitting there and thinking, why should I listen to Mike? What does he know? He's an auctioneer. He's not even a fundraiser. That is a valid response to this. The thing is, I have been helping nonprofits for over a decade. I've helped nonprofits such as a small church in a town of 600 people. I believe the number was 612. And they had a big goal of raising $20,000. Now, the average median income of this church, of this entire town of 600, was $42,000. Raising $20,000 is a lot of work and it's really difficult. We got 150 people, or 25% of the population of the town, to this event, and we raised $60,000. That's one of the smallest groups I've worked with. I've also worked with larger groups like the local hospital, and they had a fundraiser that over the last 20 years had been making between $600,000 and $800,000. Over 2 years working with our team, and they made $1 million for the first time just last year. So that's a little bit about me. I don't like bragging, but apparently I need to, just for people to understand that I do know what I'm talking about. So 9 signs your nonprofit is ready for Gala. As all of hosting a gala isn't just a party, it's a signal that your nonprofit is ready for growth. And ideally, it's a way to not just raise money, but educate people about what you do. Educate your nonprofit, educate your donors, and educate everyone. So we're going to start getting into the signs. Sign 1, organizational maturity. You have a clear mission, programs in place, stable leadership, and a track record of success. But what's that mean? Clear mission. Can you adequately state your mission? And can you make it concise? The event doesn't define your mission, it amplifies it. Not just your team and not just your donors. Can you make it make sense without a long preamble? You must be able to do this easily, because you're going to need to do this throughout your program. And you're going to need to sell the idea of this to people when you sell your event, when you're selling tickets. Are the programs in place? And I'm talking about programs that function, show real outcomes and success you're achieving. This will be key in showing good stewardship of funds, which is one of the major keys to donor retention. Now, as we're talking, if you do have questions, please do put them in chat. I'm also planning on dropping my contact information if I do not get to getting all of that, and it's at the last of the slides as well. If you have any follow-up questions or you want to have more of a conversation after this. Stable leadership, strong direction, accountability at the top, and consistency. Your donors should feel confident in investing with you. And that's because that's what donations are. They are investments in your mission, which brings us back to what's the mission of your event? Why is it so important? And a track record of success. These often can be your programs in place, but victories from them. This once again goes back to stewardship, which once again goes back to donor retention. Track records of success can be the stories we tell, which will once again go into what we're doing with the entire event. We're telling stories. Storytelling is going to come up because it's a big thing to me. So, engaged supporter base. Here's sign number 2. Who's showing up and who's already excited? The first question I ask every nonprofit comes to me wondering if they should build their gala is, if you made an event and tickets were $50 to $100, are you confident you would be able to sell a minimum of 100 tickets? That is the ground level for me, is if that question scares you and you come back with, oh, I don't know, then you have to really assess if you're ready to do an event, because people who go to events that are trying to go, if you say $50 is too much for an event, it's really not. If you are having food delivered to you for just yourself, you're probably getting close to that. So $50 to $100 is a valid metric. And when we talk about 100 people, I'm not saying that you just throw it out into the aether and 100 people will come. That can be calling your donors, that can be reaching out to people. That church in that small town I was talking to, they said, we are going to call every one of our people and then more people to get those 100 people, 150 people in. That's the baseline. Ideally, we'd be building towards 300, 400, 500, 600 people, but you have to start somewhere. And there have been amazing events that start with 100 people. Who's already excited? You want people who aren't just aware of your mission. They're passionate. They volunteer. They comment on your post. They talk about your work. They tell their friends. When you talk about that kind of enthusiasm, that's what you need to bottle up and connect with. Those are the people you should be reaching out to help you build your event, reaching out to volunteer in some capacity. Those are the people that are excited. Ambitious fundraising goals. Now, here's the fun part. What would your nonprofit do with a major influx of funds? Funding, a little bit of a tongue twister. This is fun, but it's also a problem. I call it the pile of money problem. Now, imagine if you close your eyes, obviously can't see if you are or not, but if you had an extra however much money, an extra 50,000, an extra $250,000, an extra $1 million, whatever you think would be a reasonable goal for your nonprofit at their gala. If you had that money, is there a common cause your team would pull together for? I mean, when you talk about all the people who are very important and decision makers at your nonprofit, whether that's board of directors, whether that's staff, whether that's the executive team, if you had that money right now, would everyone be in agreement in how it's spent? This is a big one because we need everyone to be pulling in the same direction. Now, how has that gone wrong? How has it gone? If I've talked to nonprofits where they're like, we want to put together a gala. And I'm like, great. So what's our goal? And they said, these people want to work on this, and these people want to work on this, and these people want to work on this. I said, okay, it sounds like you're going to make at least 2/3 of the people a little angry with your gala, no matter what you do. So the goal is always to find a project that everyone can pull in the same direction towards. So when we talk about ambitious fundraising goals, how can we do that? And the best goals are not general. They're specific. They're not general fund, because your donors, once again, we're talking about donors, is your donors want to fund something. They want to drive by and say, I did that. I funded that. My $1,000, my $2,000, my $50 funded this project. That's what's so compelling about a gala. Because if you tell a very good story with a specific ask and you say, this night, this here, we funded that playground right over there. That's amazing. That's something they can drive by and grab. They can say, I did that. If we're putting it into the general fund, while sometimes necessary, they can't grab that. And it doesn't really show, it's hard to show exactly where the money's going if it's going into a general fund. Okay. Sign number 4, volunteer and staff capacity. We've got logistics, marketing, fundraising, and planning. Okay, so now we're moving on to logistics. Do you have the capacity to do the work? Galas are a ton of work. I always tell people that galas are the biggest project for fundraise, but also it's 99% of the events that raise the highest amount of money are galas. Unless you happen to be getting famous bands together to raise money for your mission, the gala is probably the best thing to raise significant funds. However, it's also a ton of work. You need to find a venue, get the event space set up, getting the right people in place for audio, visual, lighting. All of it takes a lot of time. And you really have to say, do you have the capacity to put the logistics together? When we move on to marketing, how are you going to tell your story through the pre-event marketing? How are you invitations going to work? Where are you spending the money to bring people in? Are you calling your donors? Is it radio ads? Is it digital ads? Your favorite venue? What's going to tell your mission, especially for those who can't attend? Because now, since COVID, we've moved into an entire era where people are expecting that you do a hybrid event, where if your event is going well, that they're not even in your location and they can attend. And there is a good expectation with that, because guess what? When you're doing hybrid events, people who can't attend can also bring in funds. How can we get those people connected? Now, the next one, you'll have to forgive me, is fundraising. This is my baby. This is all I do. So I'm going to try and not talk too much about this, but let's talk about the ask, the part that makes many nonprofits nervous. Are you prepared to make a strong, confident ask in a setting that feels different than your usual appeal? Do you have the right people in the right roles, or is this something worth investing in professionally? Here's what I've seen time and time again. Nonprofits spend thousands on entertainment, decor, and even novelty acts, but overlook the person who can drive six-figure difference or seven-figure difference for them in donations from the stage. It's not about me, it's about strategy. Fundraising is the centerpiece of the night, and if it's not working, the rest becomes window dressing. Okay, I have stepped off of my high horse, and we're moving right on to planning. Planning a gala is like conducting an orchestra. Every detail matters, and it all needs to stay in rhythm. Who's writing the timeline? Who's organizing the speaker? It's not just people, but tech, the flow, the transitions, who's leading committees for decor, check-in, food, AV, sponsorships, auction items, pre-committed donations, raffles, and the list goes on. These don't magically fall into place. And the more intention you bring into planning, the more freedom you'll have to present and connect it on the night. And that's where the magic happens. That's what I do. I help you plan all these out, and I take the stress out of the planning. Great galas don't happen by accident. They happen because a strong team is ready to execute and not just dream. Okay. So number 5 is community and stakeholder buy-in. Enthusiasm, support, and presence. There should be people loving your nonprofit. However, this can be enhanced with effort and good marketing. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, that enthusiasm can be enhanced by telling your story, by having marketing that reconnects, and by having your team ready to tell people about what you want to do, and having your own excitement creates excitement in others. Support. Is your team brought into the idea of the gala? Bought into the idea of the gala. Does your plan have board support? Remember how I was talking about everyone pulling in the same direction? Is your team bought in? Because having a team behind you is absolutely necessary for success, unless you plan to be the only person doing everything. And I cannot tell you how many times I've seen that go wrong. So team support is very vital. Presence. Who is going to show up? Who loves you? Who wants to sing your praises? Who will be there? And who loves your mission? Probably who will invite 5 of their friends who has been waiting for an event to share your mission because they love you so much. I'm sure you're picturing someone right now. Those are the people you need to champion you. If people are excited before the event invitation even goes out, you've already built a foundation for something. Strategic timing. Now, I'm going to say, and this is a little controversial, but this is one of the less important ones. Now, that sounds a little crazy because I have seen analysis paralysis for a lot of nonprofits because they want to nail this perfectly. There's a saying I love that is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And that's how I feel about galas is trying to nail it perfectly is a recipe for disaster because it could kick you 3 to 4 to 5 years into the future. However, given that your milestones, anniversaries, and avoiding conflicts are very important. So, do you have milestones like a big project, expansion, program launches? These are natural moments for milestones and galas that you can invest into. Do you have a big anniversary you want to celebrate? Might be a good launching point for a gala, especially one that continues going forward, a mark of what you've achieved. Now, this is what I was talking about with avoiding conflicts. Everyone thinks this means avoiding other conflicts, but I would say most importantly, it is avoiding your own conflicts. I spoke with a nonprofit last month that has their gala in August. Not a bad time, except for this fact that their only other event is in July. Now, if you can imagine having 2 months in a row and having your 2 biggest events with no preamble, just all of it going into one another, it's not good. So avoiding conflicts with yourself would be looking at your calendar and saying, if we were to start an event, what would be the best time? If you are focused on schools, and you're saying we can't do it during back to school or during the spring. Maybe we're talking about summer. Maybe we're talking about an August event. So you have that time of downtime during school, during summer break. It's important to plan out your event that most fits you. But obviously, you want to avoid big events in your area that you're not going to go out and say, oh, here's the biggest fundraiser of the year in my town. I'm going to put my event at the exact same time on the same night. That's not good planning. However, on the opposite side of this, because this is a conversation of nuance, there is never going to be a perfect time. No matter what time you pick, someone will not be available to be there. Someone will not be there. And that's very sad. But once again, that's where analysis paralysis and being too afraid to take a step out will get you caught up. And like I say, the perfect time may never come, but a strategic one will. Okay, budget and financial planning. This is a fun one. A realistic budget with clear ROI expectations. So I know what you know when you're getting into with your budget. Figure out your venue fees, ask around about catering, AV, decor, and then have some extra room because extra things always come in. This is having a realistic budget. But with that, comes the clear ROI expectations. With my clients, I build a plan with exact goals for what we're raising. Then I draw a roadmap for how we're going to get there. And what about non-financial ROI? Are we talking about the experience we want people to have? How is the education of your night going to move your mission forward? Is your storytelling going to inspire more volunteering? Educate people so they can get more involved. Maybe you just need to raise money for success, for your mission success. Maybe you need to raise people, a la Bigs for Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Many nonprofits just hope to raise money, but that's not really setting yourself up for success. You need to plan, because hopes and dreams are not how success is made. Success is made with planning. It's made with exact goals of what we're going to do to get there. Metrics, goals, and plans. And professionalism. Well, you probably want your event to feel elegant, educational, entertaining, enjoyable, and a slew of other great sounding E-words. But how do you get there? Making sure your timeline is tight, people stay on track, people have the experience you're trying to achieve. Don't hope it pays off, plan for it too. Know what you can invest in and what you need to earn. Marketing and promotion. Strategy, audience targeting, and storytelling. Well, for the strategy, truth be told, you should have a timeline set up for planning your event, starting with locking in your venue and your consultant to help nail the planning and fundraising for your event. When is the sponsorship window close? How about auction items? When are you selling tickets? For how long? Any deals on them? Are you selling tables or tickets? And when? A plan can significantly lower stress. And that's what I aim to do for my clients, but it should also be what you do if you aren't working with someone. Build this plan out so you don't have that stress on the table. Audience targeting. How is your target audience? Not always the same as who you serve. Remember your story. It needs to appeal to who you want to come. That doesn't mean it's the same people as who you serve. For instance, if you're a private school and you serve children, but I'm assuming you want adults at the event, not children, correct? Is your target parents of current students? Is it grandparents? Or do you want to target alumni? Do you want to target business owners or someone else completely? Your story will help determine this. Your message should match your audience and speak to their motivations. And storytelling. You may have noticed it keeps coming up. I love storytelling. Stories help people put themselves in your shoes. Storytelling should go into everything. And when you figure out exactly how you want to tell your story, then you can decide how to put it into everything. Remember, facts tell, but stories sell. And you know it's true because it rhymes. And finally, long-term strategy. Is this an annual tradition or a one-time win? How does it fit into your growth? I've yet to really hear a compelling argument for doing a gala once, then stopping. But why do I say that? Because the first year is the hardest. It is the most stressful. It has the most questions you need answered. And I have a lot of those answers, but not all of them for clients. By the second year, you should have a book of information on what you've done and what works. And if you work with me, I'll also have notes that affect that. But in year 2, 3, 4, it should be easier and you should have stable growth in your event as you continue to improve. But how does it fit into your growth? Is your gala part of your growth goals or is it the whole thing? Is your gala how you reach projects that aren't covered in your budget, or is it how you keep the lights on? My personal opinion is it should be there to help you. My thoughts are that your gala should be something that helps fund new projects. Ideally, your nonprofit is funded through other things that are going on through the years. The lights are already on. So when you bring in an extra 50, 100, 250,000, $500,000, $1 million, that goes towards your goals. Now, why do I say that? Because once again, people reach and grab onto what they are, what they can hold, what they can touch, what they can see. When you build an entire new wing that was funded by the supporters of your event, they can drive by and say, oh yes, I helped with that wing. I helped with that building. I helped with this. And that's a very strong motivation. So remember, you're not planning an event, you're unlocking mission driven growth. And if you are interested in learning more, if you're interested in having a conversation about what that looks like or how to connect with me, that is my information. And that's my presentation. I'll be dropping my contact information that's in there in chat as well.
So, first of all, Mike, thank you. This is fabulous. And I've got a couple questions up here in the queue. Start off, I'm going
Yeah.
to ask Jen to come on mic and ask the two questions that are currently burning for you.
All right. Thank you. So my first question, Mike, is I have some experience with this, but old school, that my knowledge is stale. So I wonder if, in particular, thinking about the use of social media and AI for community building, is there anything new around, like, what's the kind of the biggest concern or trend in the last 2 or 3 years? Because I'm not in nonprofit right now, so I'm stale.
Yeah. One, the fact that you're actually trying to learn and expand speaks more to don't think you're completely stale, because I know a lot of people who have the conversation and they say, I've been running this event for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, that's great. What have you done to educate yourself and learn? So when we're talking about AI in community building, my opinion of AI, and I use it every day, is it should definitely be something that is used as an extension of you, but not necessarily replacing. And so it should be a help, but you can't necessarily remove, like, because I did research, I did a whole blog on AI and how it's helping fundraising move forward. What a lot of people are seeing is that AI has been very useful in organizing things for galas, like seating charts and how are we and automating some level of connection, but it shouldn't necessarily repeat in-person connection with the people there. And so it's that really hard to balance, because there's some people who go all into it and some people who say, no, I don't want any of it. And I really don't think that's the right answer. I think using it to make your job easier, but connecting with people on a personal level is the way to go with it.
Can I ask a follow-up then?
Yeah.
I feel I use AI, but I'm thinking about boomers who are maybe they're a little bit AI averse. And also, my second question was about I've used Patreon in the past, which is a combination of a sign up for a newsletter and financial contributions and an ongoing. But then Eventbrite has really good algorithms for, seems to bring an event. Like, I've received events that are perfect for me. I assume that it can do that for me with other people. So what do you think about those things? And but boomers, I don't know if they're on. I don't want to generalize, but
Yeah,
like demographic information.
it's the thing is, there's boomers at every level, and there's people who, like, because I do my networking and I'll be talking to people my age who are like, oh, I hate AI. I hate AI. It's replacing us. And I'm like, no, it's just a tool. And for me, I honestly say my general goal when I'm working with nonprofits is to find a way to reach your people the way they want to be reached. Everything comes back to me. For the general thing I say is, when people are trying to give me money, I try to make it as easy as possible. How do they want to give money? Do they want to raise their hand? Do they want to be recognized in person? Do they want to be silent? Do they want to be anonymous? It sounds really silly until you realize how many nonprofits have a lot of hoops that they need to jump through. Now, full transparency, I don't have a lot of history with Eventbrite and building the events from that side, because I am a consultant. And so I don't work in a nonprofit myself. So my part has been largely consulting on the fundraising aspects of it, but not in the back end part of it, which, I'm sorry, Eli, but I'm not as tech savvy as the most tech savvy.
Good. You're in the right place, because that's us. Perfect. So I've got another question actually from another auction fundraising expert coming here for both. Lori, go ahead.
Hi, Eli. Thank you for doing this. Hey, Mike, it's nice to meet you. I just messaged you on LinkedIn because I'm with you.
Yep.
question that organizations ask us all the time, because we're a software, on the run of show while you're on the stage. Go live auction first and then paddle raise, or paddle raise and then live auction first. I half empty, half full. There's a lot of philosophies on that. And I'm curious what your opinion is, what your experience is, and what's the best practice these days.
So I can give you 4 different answers because this is something I've seen like in my field. I've seen it so many times. People will die on the hill. And people will be like, it has to be paddle raise first. It needs to be auction first. And my answer is like, it's going to sound really like a cop-out, but I still say it's the best answer is you have to figure out what people say to you. And that will be one, you can do it one way, but if people come to you after the event and it's a large amount of people that are saying, oh, I was going to give during this section, but I wanted some things on the auction. Now, the research I have seen shows that people who give during the auction in the paddle raise are 2 different people simply because they're from 2 different buckets. The piece being like, if you're buying a trip to Honolulu, that doesn't go into your donation bucket, that's into your travel bucket. But at the same time, it also depends with the size of and clients you're talking to. Now, one of the other things you didn't talk about in your question, but I think is really functional to it, is how long is your auction? Because the thing is, if you don't have someone on stage who can keep everyone entertained and work the crowd, then you run the risk of people being checked out by the time you ask them for money. That's why I am always suggesting to my clients, like no more than 7 or 8 auction items if you're doing it before, simply because, I always say I get by on my good looks, wit, and charm. And now I need to do that for 20 minutes to 30 minutes on stage. And I might only be selling to, let's say, 30 people in the room, but I have to entertain 200 to 600 people. And that's where the entertainment aspect of it comes to me, where I'm saying, if I'm doing the auction first, I need to be entertaining. But also you can look at it at the other way where, hey, we've been talking to them for a long time. The auction is part of the entertainment. It will break up our event. And then the energy is as high as it's going to go. We tell a story that's going to motivate people to give right after that. And then the fund to need will, go this way. It's mirrored in my computer, so it always goes opposite of where I want to go. So the short answer is like, you really have to figure out for yourself what your crowd and your donors want. I would definitely say, like, I've heard people say fund to need first, but I've worked with a lot of nonprofits that haven't seen that work as successfully. But I have the flexibility to say one or the other. And at the end of the day, I'm a consultant. If the nonprofit says we want to do the fund to need first, I'm going to say, okay, let's make this work as well as possible.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that, because I hear the same thing. It bounces back and forth. And I want to know what you guys are doing in the room, and hearing directly from you is incredibly valuable. Thank you for your time.
Oh, I should answer. A paddle raise is also a fund to need is what it's called. And it's the moment where it's the ask moment of the night. For me, it's the entire reason why you hire someone fancy like me, because it's the moment where you've told your story and then someone makes impassioned ask for you to raise your paddle or raise your hand and give donations. In the town I live in, everyone does a silent ask, and it drives me up a wall because I live in a small town of 70,000 people, and they don't understand the paddle raise, and they're like, oh, we'll just silently ask. What it does is it motivates people. And for me, I say it creates a positive and exciting moment to give funds instead of a guilting moment to give funds. Because my goal for that paddle raise is to get everyone cheering and saying, yes, thank you, number 227. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you so very much for your donation at the $10,000 level. Is there anyone else? Thank you. And so what I'm doing is creating a moment of high energy during an ask where we ask for funds. And what that does is typically raise significantly more funds for the nonprofit. And that's the paddle raise, that's the fund a need, that's sometimes called the ask. And so that's what that is.
Okay, let me
Awesome.
ask you another
Go
question.
ahead, go for it.
Do you do a paddle drop at the end of your paddle raise? Do you suggest that? Or sweep or
So what I've done at the end of and it really depends on the size of your event. Like, and if you're at an event with 600 people, this does not work as well. But if you're in an event with less people, and like I said, depends on the size of the event. What I love to do is at the $100 level, I just typically say, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to give again, I just ask that you raise your hands in the air, and then it visually looks like so many people are giving right then. However, if we're in a room of 600 people and that $100 level is going to take another 20 minutes, then the paddle drop is a great way to facilitate that. And I love doing that. But it's one of those things where I would always say giving people the opportunity to be applauded for giving is always my first choice. But then at the same time, I also give the opportunity, like after every fund need, I typically say, ladies and gentlemen, if I didn't ask for the right level, maybe you want to give more, maybe you want to give less, maybe you want to give somewhere in between, or maybe you like to give anonymously. And then I give directions, which would be like, talk to these people, because once again, my most important thing is making sure when people give money to the nonprofit, I want them to be comfortable, feel happy. I don't want them to feel like, because there's people who don't want the attention. And so then I always want them to feel like they're being fully appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Amazing. I'm learning a tremendous amount here. I'm usually just the guy in the audience who's a little tipsy and not following the details that closely. So I've got a couple other questions, and if anyone else has any other things, drop them into the chat and we'll get to it. So I was really struck by this idea of doing the stress test to basically say, do I have people in my community who I think I could get $50 off of these, or do I have 100 of them? Have you seen people actually go and do a stress test? Is there some kind of way where you could before I even launched my gala, a way to make sure I do have that support there that I thought I had?
So I actually love this question because I didn't want to go too deep into why and how, but like, I feel it's very important for people to understand. And what I mean by that is that, like, I don't need you to be confident you'll get 100 people, but I do need you to have the passion to know that, like, you're going to put in the work to do that. Like, the successful galas, and I've heard some of the biggest people in my industry say this, and I have to agree, the successful galas are not built by the nonprofits that have the most money. They're built by the nonprofits that have the most passion. So when I went into that town with 600 people and they're like, yes, we have 150 spots we can fit here. And I'm like, dude, the town's 600 people. You're getting a quarter of the town there. And then they said, yes, we are going to put it in our church bulletin. We are going to call people. We are going to make sure this room is full. And so it's not so much about the question, but it's the reaction to the question. Right. So if I put to you and I say, if you did an event with 100 people or $100 ticket or $50 ticket, could you get 100 people at your event? And your immediate reaction is, I'm like, no, you're not ready. You're not ready. Because that idea is like, it's scary to you. But like, I'm also going to tell you, like, hey, do you want to raise $100,000? Okay, that's our number. Okay, this percentage is probably going to be sponsorship. Like, this percentage. Okay, so can we, like, we're going to need to go out and ask people for money, businesses, let's say $25,000 to $40,000. I'm like, gee, that's the easy money. Like, it gets harder. It gets harder. If you're pushing back on the easy money, I don't think you've got the passion and the will and the drive to do this. And so that's why I always ask that question and I wait for their reaction, because I will talk to nonprofits and they'll be like, yes, we want to do an event that raises $100,000. I'm like, great. Here's what we're going to need to do. here's our goals. This is because I write the roadmap for them. I'm like, okay, to get to $100,000, we're going to take this percentage and this percentage. And if we do all these things, we are going to sail past 100,000 to 120 to $150,000. But I'm looking for my goal when I'm working with nonprofits is when I'm having that conversation with them, I say, my goal is we have about 95,000 of $100,000 walking in. I want it to be as I'm walking on stage, if I trip, break my leg, I'm trying, I get gurneyed out. I say, no, please, I can still do it. Still gurneyed out, that everything's gone wrong. The nonprofit still manages to trip over the goal and still hit $100,000. That's my goal. I set us up to succeed like that because that's what planning does. And that's why when we did that event that raised $60,000 on a $20,000 goal, they were doing that at every step of the way. They did a raffle that ended up raising $15,000. I was like, oh, that basically takes care of the whole event.
We're like, great, because shut it down. We're done. We've hit goal.
And then the other thing about it is when you far exceed your goal, that creates momentum. And then the next part is then you're building that donor retention, because if you get that money, then you do what you said you were going to do. And then the next year you're showing that you said what you did, what you're going to do. Now you're showing stewardship, and that builds to donor retention. And then we can talk about how are we thanking our donors? How are we recognizing them? How are we following up with thank you cards? Every nonprofit I've talked to says, oh, we got thank you cards. You don't need to worry about it. And then I get a thank you card from them, and it's 3 weeks later after the event. And I'm just like, that's not the right timing. You want this out 4 days after your event's done, not 3 weeks. That's a lot of work. I'm like, yes, that's how you build donor retention, is you tell people thank you while they're still thinking about your event. You don't tell them thank you when, it's been 3 weeks and they've already, I don't know, whatever on with their life. They've already been to 2 other galas, or their kids already made a mess on their clothes 4 times since they were at your gala. That's only top of mind because I have a 4-month-old myself.
Exactly. One more question. So you talked a little bit about this retention. Do gala donors tend to can you convert them into monthly donors, or do they tend to be like a different species of donor? And they'll be great at next year's gala, but frankly, they're probably not going to convert into other kinds of donors for your organization.
Well, that all really goes into a whole subset of the event of like, how are you telling your story? How are you planning for this? Are you actively looking to grow that monthly donation? Because there are ways to, even during the fund to need, do that monthly ask. There are ways to build that connection sphere. I always talk to, and I have a whole presentation on it, but I talk about how your board members should empower your fundraising by being your networking hand for the nonprofit. So let's say, I explain it like this. So you have your registration, then when they take 5 steps into your room, your board members should be there. So let's say I'm coming into your event, I'm a single guy, I really care about animals, and this is the Humane Society event. Someone should walk up to me that's from the board and say, hi, my name is Eli, and I'm one of the board members of this nonprofit. What's your name? Thank you for coming. Oh, I'm Mike. Hey, I just wanted to make sure that, 1, thank you for coming. 2, is there anyone you would like to meet? Oh, no, don't worry about it. Oh, are you sure? Like, the executive director's right over here. Oh, yeah, I would love to meet them. Or you figure out what they do. Now, your board of directors should be connecting people and saying, who do they want to be connected to? How do they want to give? How do they connect? People are coming to your event. We want them to feel welcomed. We want them to feel appreciated. And then we want them to give again. Now, part of that is when Eli is going through the list, and guess what? Tomorrow it says, ooh, Mike gave $1,000. Okay, Eli, he's one of your people. Write a personalized thank you note. Personalized thank you note. written by Eli, goes out in 3 days. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for coming again. We had a great conversation and thank you so much for donating. Just wanted to just say thank you. Now, we're not going to ask for anything. We're not going to push out and be like, hey, please come to whatever. We already should have said, please come to next year's event. But what we're doing is we're building that personal connection. So now Mike, who just came because he likes animals, oh, Eli is my friend who's on the board of directors at this nonprofit. And yeah, I will also send my slides over to Eli to send that as well.
Awesome. Last thing, you talked about the passion, the ultimately it. So like a gala, it's a party, but it's more than a party. And so I'm wondering, do you have any like stories or examples of where people have been really effective in integrating that nonprofit's core mission into the gala experience?
I always tell people, if you want to raise the most money, it should be your second priority. Number one should be education. It should be, in my mind, it should be generally, my event would be education, fundraising, experience. And because one, people aren't going to give you the money they would give you if you don't educate them about why they should. And two, like, we want fundraising to be the most important thing, but the education needs to come first. And then the experience affects fundraising and the education as well. That's always been mine. Now, why I bring that up is I worked with the school, that's actually my alma mater, and what we did for them is their thing they were trying to say was celebrate the past, excel in the and build till tomorrow. And so we had one of the cool things I really liked about the school was they're saying, okay, we are going to have students doing the arts. Like we want to have some part of every single club at this school represented. They had art students doing clay and pottery, which you don't want to get too close to in a 3-piece suit, but like you could come in and look at it. And then they had singing groups and they had all of these things. And then they had like people in hockey and football pads helping with the funding, and it was a lot of fun. And so for me, it becomes this like the mission's super important. Like I always fully believe that the best auction items are items that incorporate the mission because people get fully bought into it. And that's the same thing with the program is how can we connect the program to the mission? How can we connect the mission to the program? Like it is everything for me because one of the best advice I've ever heard is don't spend money on marketing unless don't spend money on cheap little giveaways unless it furthers the mission. Because like when people donate, they don't, let's say I donate $10,000 to you and you're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Here, have this or whatever marketing stuff. And I'm sitting there, man, I gave you $10,000 to further the mission. I don't want to spend it on marketing plastic things or whatever's. So
Yeah, no,
that's where I'm at with that.
That's great advice. I think that list of priorities is really a helpful guide. So we're at the top of the hour. Let me close by saying, Mike, thank you. That was really helpful.